think of environmental groups, they tend to think of conservation and preservation of land, not so much of cultures and communities. This was a quote from one of the 18 leaders from underrepresented identities in the environmental movement that I personally interviewed this summer. Although they were from all across America, common themes ran through the discussions I had with each individual. Minority voices are not being encouraged to speak up, and in the opportunities that they do get, their existence is misrepresented and stereotyped. My organization is 97% white. We have a serious issue. The reason why is because this NGO and most NGOs are paid very little. If you're not paying people the right amount of money, then only people from privileged backgrounds can do this type of work. This is a quote from another one of my interviewees. She is one of the primary litigators against Trump's border wall. Her experience is unfortunately echoed in environmental organizations across our country. According to the Green 2.0 initiative, 84% of staff at environmental organizations are white. We would have days where we couldn't go to school because the air quality was so bad. They told us not to go outside. I was there during the 2006 monsoons in Mumbai, which are the worst monsoons that the city's felt in recent history. I saw flooding, I saw dead bodies floating in 4 feet of water. This quote was given by an interviewee who grew up in the global south. She eventually came to realize that the environmental issues she grew up with in India were from decades of colonial suppression. Because the climate crisis exacerbates current inequities in our society, marginalized communities are most vulnerable to chemical exposure, extreme weather events, lack of access to clean water and nutritious food, and the list goes on. There's this idea that we can continue to live this lifestyle of consumerism and business as usual while we find solutions outside of that without compromising this life. But the reality is that we can't sustain it. This is a quote given by a queer mixed woman that works as a logistical coordinator in an environmental justice organization. Many people in places of privilege, including our own campus, fail to see the drastic shifts in policy, economy, and lifestyle that must occur if we have any chance of preventing this climate emergency. People will say, we should return to the Native American way of life because they kept the environment safe. They speak about indigenous perspectives as if they were in the past. I have to speak up in class and stand up for the fact that we're still doing that. We're here and we're continuing that. We've been trying to show you. This quote is from an Alaska Native from the Inupiat people. Her voice emphasizes the forgotten fact that indigenous people of our country are tied to the land and always have been. Their experiences are often misused in the context of the environmental movement and portrayed as romanticized, tokenized versions of true Native American voices. There have been spaces in the movement where I feel like I'm the one being loud. I'm making things complicated. I'm slowing things down. But I'm doing this because I want organizations to be more accountable, to be more justice-focused. This is a quote from a trans Latino woman who uses fiction and storytelling to explore issues related to environmental justice. I recognize that not every person from a minority identity must be an environmental justice advocate, and that not every minority identity is on the front lines of the climate crisis. However, there is a clear correlation of non-whiteness and social, economic, physical, and political vulnerability. We need leadership that is representative of the communities being most heavily affected. How can we create climate solutions that work for all communities when they are not at the table to give input? How can we place our efforts in protecting nature and wildlife without also protecting communities of vulnerable people? How can we say that we want environmental justice without also wanting prison reform, debt-free education, abortion rights, gun control, immigration reform, and every other social issue that the climate crisis intensifies? The answer is by doing what we're doing today, standing up, speaking up, and raising up those that may not have had the opportunity to advocate for themselves or their communities. It's not just polar bears, it's people too.